I think we're ready to go. Welcome to the Parks, Rec, Streets, Infrastructure Committee meeting. Here we got a lot of stuff to cover this evening, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First off, I'd like to ask Donna Lake to come on up and tell us about a project that she's been working on.
Alrighty. So for about a year or so, I've been contemplating what might be the best use of the waterworks pool that hasn't been open for a long time. And so with the popularity of splash pads down at Sawyer Point and Schmale Park, and others in the area, there's one in Oakley that I've walked around and looked at that. So I thought it could be a possibility up at Victory where the old pool was. And so a couple months ago, Jenny Wallace and I met a gentleman from Shamrock Pools. He's the gentleman who, Shamrock is the pool that, is the contractor that put the pool in initially, so they know where everything is. And so we had a discussion about, he's like, do you want to fill this whole pool area with a splash pad? I'm like, yes. So he he drew up a rendering of what he thought would work the best. And I did distribute that Tuesday night to all of the members. After the council meeting, I distributed that to the members of the committee. And I did just share that with some folks in the audience. We also talked, despite what is on here, we also talked about having those little jets that just shoot up like it is down at Schmale Park, and he said those were very inexpensive, that he could put those in. So I'm not certain, it doesn't appear as though those are in here, but we could certainly add those if you thought we needed more water features. I asked him, initially he said that the chlorine tanks and the pumps and everything would probably be okay, but they haven't been used in a really long time, and the worst thing I would hate to have happen is for somebody to like have a naming right, put their name on it, and then not have the pump or the chlorinator work. And so we asked him, Jenny and I asked him to give us a quote with new pumps and filters and everything, and then one without. So what you have here, you won't be able to see the filter or the pump or anything. That is in the pump house. There will be an additional holding area that needs to be built, and that's probably next to the pump house. It has something to do with the recirculation of the water. I don't understand all that. And I also asked him to include some cubbies so that people could put their shoes and things like that, just open cubbies. And we had Shamrock come again just because they've worked with the city before. So he is in the process of working up a quote. I do not have that yet. I checked my email on my way in. He was waiting to see if this design was what we wanted, quite frankly, because he didn't want to go through all the trouble and then have somebody say, no, we really want something else. So that's my spiel on the splash pad.
All right.
We had intended to perhaps ask or submit a grant to Interact for Health, which I talked about the last time we were here, that there's a possibility we could do that. And they suggested that we wait until next year because the deadlines were quickly approaching and we didn't have anything in place. Plus Ron Murphy, I don't know if the police and fire unions wanted to kick in for this. I know they talked about doing it for the hoops down at Waterworks Park. I don't know if they'd be interested in sponsoring some of this, but I know the city's in fiscal emergency, and we're not going to have this to do in our appropriations, that's for sure. So my thought was, if again, once this has been approved and once we get a quote, I was going to speak with the administration and see what they thought about naming rights. Huber Heights up by Dayton did a $500,000 or close to a $500,000 splash pad. They did bonds, and the bonds are paid off completely by the naming rights of the folks whose name is on the splash pad. So I don't think this will be nearly as expensive as that. I hope not, anyway. But if it's approved by the administration, I would hope that we could approach one or two businesses to see if they would help with the cost of this. We certainly put their name up, and it's in a very visible area. We said to keep the chain link fence around it because we didn't want people going in there at nights, or, just bad things happen after dark in parks, I think. We talked about, and I don't know if we wanted to do this, but one of the thoughts was that we would have the cards and card reader like they do, the North City Schools does for using their track. That way, if there was a problem, we would know who was in the area at the time. It would also, I don't know if you want to restrict it to Norwood people. That was my only, do we want to just only have Norwood residents, or do people just have to come and get a card? Because my grandkids certainly do use Smale Park and all the other water parks around town, so I don't know that we want to be exclusionary, but just a thought that something we were discussing. And so that's all that I have. I really kind of like to get some feedback on the design, if you think this is what you want. Before we I told him to go ahead and give us a quote just in case, because it's going to take a
the
while.
quote at least will give us a good
Please?
a quote will at least give us a good
Yes.
ballpark.
Yeah.
I like the idea of putting in the jets.
The little jets, yeah,
Kids
I do
love
too.
those. But,
Just
you know,
cute.
it looks like he's
The
got
nice
a lot
thing
of stuff
is,
in here.
and Jenny was there, and in terms of manpower, because, one of the reasons the pool was closed was because of expense and hiring lifeguards and stuff like that to do that, when the pool was open. And so I double-checked with Ohio Health Code, and there is no requirement to have a lifeguard on duty. You put up signs, at your own risk, just like they do at Smale Park. There's no lifeguard there. So the only thing that we could think of is that somebody would have to come and unlock it in the morning and then turn it all off, or lock it up at night. We can get timers on them. He's including a timer so that it can just automatically come on and off at certain days of the week. So,
That's awesome.
so there's, like I said, the big thing is it shouldn't have any personnel costs. Somebody can lock and unlock the gates on their way to and from work. So I thought that was a bonus. So if you all think it's worthwhile, I'll go ahead and proceed and report back to
absolutely
you.
love it. I mean, having a 2-year-old, we love going,
Right.
rather than getting into a big pool,
Right.
having something like that where she loves water, so I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people could walk there, because I know parking is a problem. It's a real problem, and it's more of a neighborhood thing, or probably even, I shouldn't say this, maybe you could park across the street at the Kroger lot or whatever,
We've
but,
got the parking garage too that's free to use, which is only a block away.
yeah, yeah. So that's my spiel.
All right. Thank you so much, Simon.
And then I guess you're going to talk about the volunteer.
Yes. That's a
Did
little.
you Need me or not need me?
I
Is
don't-
Greg going to come?
I don't think Greg's gonna.
I thought he had a
said
meeting
he
or
might be able to
something.
get here later, but I can talk about it. It's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ficker, you want to come on up?
My name is Kurt Ficker. I own an office at 5001 Montgomery Road. And when they widened the street, I guess about 8 or 10 years ago, they graded the road so it went to the sewers and it drained properly. But over the years across the street at Highland and Montgomery, it wasn't draining, so we were getting a big, 10-foot diameter area of undrained water. So they tried to clean it out, and it didn't work, and they tried to suck it out with the big machine, didn't work. Finally, they cut the street, got in there, and they still didn't fix it. It's still not draining properly. But when they put the patch back over where they cut, the drainage, the grade is away from the sewer. Also, right in front of my building, there's a water valve, turn on, turn off. It lost the cap on it. And they came in and they put blacktop around there. So they didn't dig out the gravel and the dirt in the hole. And when they did that, they made a natural pond. I guess it's about 2 feet in diameter. So every time a car drives through there, it splashes on my building or through my front door. And so what needs to be done, they need to regrade the street so it flows to the sewer like it was when they widened the road. And basically what's happening is it's ruining my front door, my floor, my mortar, my bricks. My patients get splashed when they're walking in and out the door. I have video of that. So it's hurting my business and it's hurting my property, both of those. So, I just in a position where I feel like it's destroying some value for me and I can't do anything about it. And, when I did get a mortar and brick guy out there, he gave me an estimate and he said, well, if the problem in the street, the grade and the water's like this, it's going to come out almost immediately. It's a waste of your money.
Mm-hmm.
And he said you might even have structural problems with the building eventually. I know there's a lot of mortar missing in one spot, but he might have just been telling me that. I really don't know. I'm not a structural engineer, but he might be trying to get the business right away.
Sure.
But he said don't do it if it's not regraded. And that's my basic complaint why I'm here tonight.
All right, thank you. And your wife had come and actually
Right.
presented. We've all seen the videos and pictures. What I can do is I've taken notes and we've talked about it and we'll add this to the list of road issues that we need to get fixed. And I also,
When do you think you can get a resolution from this?
I cannot tell you that at this time. I do not know.
And that problem across the street, that I should call the state or the city?
I'm not sure. I would go ahead and call Safety Service Director here, but also Metropolitan Sewer District. It's the big puddle that forms on the other side of Montgomery there
Yeah.
at that, and I don't know whose drain is responsible.
I'm trying to remember because I was forwarded an email chain that I guess you guys had with,
Right, law director.
because I'm trying to remember, did they ever decide if that was a sewer issue or if it was?
The one, that's what I'm saying.
On the
There-
other
there-
side,
there's
yeah.
two things here. There's the one that's across the street from
Right.
your property, and there's the one that's
Right.
in front of your property. The one that's
Graded correctly.
right. The
Yeah.
one that's right in front of your property. That's where the water valve.
Yeah, I think
Is-
that's where the water turn-off valve, I don't know how they're gonna get to the valve. They need to get to the valve.
Right, but that's where the
Where they put the blacktop around.
right. That's where the
underneath
blacktop
that-
is there, and that's where the
that natural
depression.
pool.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets there and the water's slowing and where they pass it, it's flowing backward instead of towards the sewer.
Right. I will make a note of that because I know that because of that valve, they have to patch that area occasionally,
Yeah, but
I
they didn't do it correctly.
right, and I want to make a note of that.
I mean,
To-
they
to-
just put a blacktop around there and then, it only takes a matter of months before it does trucks. The blacktop's only 6 inches. So eventually it's on my sidewalk in 6 months.
Yeah.
And, it's just crazy. It was fine until they started working on the other side of the street and it's been getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to try to get some resolution from it. And the law director said start city council, and I don't know what you do from there. So if you have to hire a lawyer or something like that.
As far as like I said, as far as the city streets go, I will pass the information along and make sure. 'Cause I also I'm curious about the depression and the patchwork. That makes me wonder.
I can pull up photos of it.
No, I know. I've seen them, and it's just. So I know that that's a place where they have to redo the patch. So as they're looking at that, I just want them to take a look
Yeah, see,
And-
if
and that-
they need to grade it down towards the sewer.
Yeah. So I'll make note of that. And like when it comes to the building and stuff, as I said, this is the streets and infrastructure committee. So with issues regarding your building, I would suggest,
So if
contacting the law department.
Losing value in property and in business, you go to the law department or the safety department.
I would say contact the law department and potentially the finance committee here as well. But I would talk with the law department first.
Okay. Yeah, but he said go to these meetings, so I've been to a couple of these meetings, so I met his requirement.
Right.
He'll talk to me now. Hopefully.
I would say just contact them and you've come to the meetings and we've at least taken note of the street issue.
Okay.
So we've covered that, and I will contact the city administration and let them know. And
Okay.
All right, thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
All right. Hillary, would you like to come on up? Did you want to?
Sure, I can. So my name's Hillary Copsey. I'm a resident, and I've been working with the Quality of Life group, which you guys have heard from over and over again. I led up a subcommittee of that process, which the whole thing is a resident-led effort to how can we make Norwood better. We all want to chip in. So my subcommittee was focused on infrastructure, specifically parks and roads, and those are the main ones. And also something that we call polishing the gem, as in the gem of the Highlands, basically trying to empower people to do their part to help out with our infrastructure and keeping it up to date and tidy and all of that. So just a quick update. One, we're really supportive of the Adopt a Park program. Greg Orris has been coming to all of our meetings, and he's just been an invaluable resource for us. And we really like the idea that the Adopt a Park program establishes Greg as somebody that the residents can go to when they see something in our parks that they want fixed, or they want to help fix, or they want to help take care of. To have a one person who can allow that would be a huge thing. So we really hope that goes forward and gets passed, and we're all excited to be part of that. The other really important thing that we're working on is we have a subcommittee of our subcommittee at this point that is focused on cleaning up, to that point about polishing the gem and empowering people to clean up. So we're trying to start planning now a citywide cleanup effort in the spring. This is something that Norwood used to do every spring. There was a citywide cleanup effort. There was marketing around it. There were big banners at City Hall. Susan Daniels from the Historical Society has been part of our group from the very beginning. She is also an incredible resource for us. So we want to bring back that tradition. And we hope that this committee and City Council as a whole will be supportive of that and maybe help us get the word out. We're at the beginning process of planning it, but what we envision is a citywide kind of marketing and educational campaign, kind of a reminder, probably around in April. It's time to go clean up your yards. Think about what needs fixed over winter. And here's where you can get help at the city, or you can check building codes or that sort of thing. Maybe banners across Montgomery, those sorts of marketing efforts. And then in addition to that, we're trying to secure some donations and in-kind resources to set up like cleanups in the parks. Like say this Saturday is Victory Park cleanup. The next Saturday is going to be walk your neighborhood and clean up all the litter. The idea that in addition to the educational and the marketing efforts, then every weekend there'll be some sort of community event that people can chip in and help not just their own property, but the city properties as well.
That's great.
So that's the idea. Like I said, we're just beginning to talk about this and to really like put on paper the details of our vision. So we imagine probably coming back to you maybe
That would
next
be
time
great.
you meet.
As a matter of fact, you're welcome. I would appreciate it if you come to
Great.
every meeting.
Okay.
Or as many meetings as you like to keep us informed on it, because this is great, and we would love to
Okay.
help get the word out. And we can also, during council meetings and stuff, when we announce things, we'll do that then as well. But this is fantastic, and
Great.
would love to help out with it.
Well, I have a lot of residents who are really, really enthused about this idea, so they'll be delighted to hear that you guys are supportive, and I'll be sure to come back.
Right. Well, and I think one of the great things we in this committee can do, and I know that the other committees are doing it too, is be kind of a link between the quality of life stuff and the city, and so we just want to keep that going,
Okay.
and because we do have a large group of people who are engaged, and we want to keep them engaged and know that we are hearing them on the city side. And so, yeah, we definitely will help support this.
Great.
And anything else. You talked about the adopted park approval. We will be talking about that later. So,
One last thing while I'm up here.
Sure, anything.
We also are very supportive of Donna's project, the Victory Park Splash Pad. That is something, you've heard all of this before, but just a quick recap. The quality of life process actually began last November with interviews with 70-plus residents, and then there's been meetings all through the summer and working groups and all this. And through that whole process, things like a splash pad at Victory Park came up. I don't even know how many people brought that up. So Donna's idea is fantastic, and we're really excited to see her moving it forward, and we would love to see that happen.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Hillary. Angela. That's fine. I was glad I checked my email before I came in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Angela, I know you've been to many committee meetings, but introduce
I will
yourself
introduce
again and
myself
let us know
again.
what you do.
Yep, Angela Pansella. I am a resident of Norwood, and I'm the director of Woven Oak Initiatives. We've been very active with the quality of life planning process, acting as lead agency for any kind of nonprofit status that needs some connection there. And speaking of that, quick reminder to all that Saturday, February 9th, from 9 to 11, possibly with lunch to follow, will be the community agreement rollout. That will be the time that we'll be presenting a lot of these ideas that have been talked about, particularly to connect with potential partners, investors, folks who want to help make them a reality. And so we will be, I'll be doing a lot of asking the next couple of months around with people locally to see if we can get some funding together ahead of time so that when we present to Kroger and Interact for Health and all of the rest, we can say, and we've already raised this amount of money from local residents to show that we've got skin in the game.
What's the date on that again?
It is Saturday, February 9th. I keep going back and forth on that too. I feel like it's the 9th.
I don't know. I'll look real quick. Hold on.
it's the first, so it would have to be the 8th. If it's a Saturday.
In February. Yeah,
Oh, in January.
in February.
February.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, February is Saturday night. Saturday, February 9th. All right.
Great. All
Yeah.
right, and then, and it feels very connected to everything that we've been talking about so far. There is a program called Safe Routes to Parks, and if that sounds familiar, there has been a Safe Routes to School initiative that's been happening in Norwood. That's been traffic calming, improved crosswalks, all to make it possible for kids to have a safer route to school. And so Safe Routes to Parks is a partner initiative in the same kind of family, and there is an application process to be chosen as a Safe Routes to Parks community. That's open to 11 communities across the country, one of which has to be in Oregon. We are not in Oregon, but I think we can still apply. And it would be for technical assistance, so connecting with other communities who are doing it, connecting with the people who are on the national level who have worked on these kind of projects before, and it would also be a relatively small amount of money for something like this, about $12,500. And the idea is to assist a community with planning, assessment, and implementation of probably a project, but making a plan for a variety of projects that would ensure safe, equitable access to parks in the community. And they define that quite broadly, so it can be used for things like creating colorful crosswalks to help with traffic calming. Can be some pop-up. One community did temporary bike lanes to show what a bike lane would look like, and they had an event where they had people riding bikes in that bike lane. It could be a green space near the park to improve the aesthetic and make it more attractive for people to come to the park. So all of that makes me think that things like a park cleanup would qualify for a project that could be done under this grant, and even the splash pad might be something that they could kick some funds toward. Or at least if we presented a plan that would incorporate some of these other elements that we're talking about and saying we've already started working in these areas, that might actually enhance the application that we'd be sending in. So the application has to be submitted by a nonprofit, so I'm putting forward Woven Oak as the nonprofit to do that, and I am asking for a letter of support from this committee so that we can say, yes, we have a relationship with the city government, and they are also interested in parks. So
When do you need that by?
ideally next week. I sent to you a sample letter, and I will be working on the grant. The grant is actually due December 10th, so the week is just so that I've got all of my things crossed off. But I can continue to update you through the week of the application, just so you know that you're not signing off on something that you don't know what you're signing off on.
Sure.
It just hasn't been written yet.
And with this, but this is different than the Safe Routes to Schools, and the Safe Routes to
Correct.
Schools was a grant that actually paid for
Correct.
a number of projects to be done. This is almost more money for smaller projects, or
yeah.
for researching into
and-
doing and planning a bigger
And
project.
it could be, I wasn't involved in the Safe Routes to Schools, but I don't know if there were several stages to it. I would like to call Donna Lake as expert witness.
Yeah, so in the Safe Routes to School, we had to do a planning process for, it took over a year. We as a community had to come up with where students lived and how far away from the school they were. We were charged with walking that path. So what really sold the Safe Routes to School were kids who lived on West Street or way down in West Norwood, had to walk all the way to Sharpsburg to go to school. That's quite a way. So literally the first year was planning, and then we had to come up with a document that was called our roadmap, if you will. We had to, once we had all of the data, then we put it into what we wanted. There was somebody from the state who came down, and Deb and I literally walked the whole city and telling them, we see this as a problem and that's a problem. And then we came up with a travel plan. And once the travel plan was approved by the state of Ohio, then we could start asking for money.
Okay.
And just to give you a real quick update on that, I guess people have noticed, there's a lot of construction going on. So every corner of those children who walked from West Street down over to the middle school or to to Sharpsburg, almost all of those intersections now have ramps. So for handicap, it's handicap accessibility. At the corner of Sherman and Allison, there was a really wonky kind of intersection there, it didn't square up. So if you were walking towards the middle school, and you needed to cross the street over by the construction property, you had to walk like 20 feet to get to the crosswalk, so it would line up with the other side of the street. And so there's a bump out that was put in that literally now squares up that intersection to make it a lot safer for kids. There's street calming in that right in front of the middle school, and by the health department, there was a bump out again so that it's only one lane going each direction, and there, the walk and don't walk signs will be there, so
Great.
definitely slows people down. The 2 speed humps in front of Williams Avenue are in place, and they're amazing. I've had about 10 calls saying, can we get those on our street? I said, well, let's see how it works here. Hopefully it's really calming that traffic. And there are still some pedestrian, we learned new lingo, ped heads that are to be installed with the new countdown system so that people know how long they have to cross. And then there's signage, new signage all over the place. So every school gets something. Williams got a little bit more, quite honestly, because Mr. Gabbard came to the meetings and no other principal did. So. And we had hoped that it would be done by now, but obviously it isn't, weather and all that, but
Sure.
it should be completed soon.
Yeah,
And we've had no change orders that increase the price.
incredible.
Great.
So I don't know if this seems to probably work the same way.
It's tough to tell at this stage. I have not really delved too deeply into it. I've been reading up, and it sounds as though it might not be as elaborate, but it might be that they just don't want to tell you that right away as you first get into it, because they don't want to make any promises that they're
Sure.
not going to be able to keep. But there is a lot of language about they will teach or they encourage, sustainability and finding ways to generate funds from other sources.
Right, well, and just the whole planning for the future
Indeed.
is valuable,
Yeah.
that it would help provide. So
Yeah,
that by
similarly-
itself is a good investment.
Absolutely. Similarly to Donna and Deb's kind of walking around and counting cars, there's a toolkit on the site for a walk audit, so that you grab people and have them walk to the park and notice if the sidewalk is cracked, if they notice anything invisible that seems out of place, so that you can then record that and make that part of your plan.
Great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll contact you about getting that letter and everything done. Huh, you want to come? No, that's fine. Yeah, because I got a couple of things left, but as long as we're having people come, anybody else, did you want to come up, or are you just showing here to watch? That's great, thanks for coming.
Sorry.
Dana, go ahead and let us know who you are, and
I'm Dana Boll. I live at 3947 Ellesmere.
great.
And I just want to give you kind of a status update on where I am with my little project that I started last year with Children's Hospital. I went through some leadership classes and wrote a grant for some trees, which are now in my neighborhood and at the Williams School.
Great.
We had a wonderful event on Make a Difference Day, and we had a lot of citizens come out. We had a horticulturalist, Brian Hines, from the Spring Grove Cemetery. He was incredibly knowledgeable, helpful, warm-hearted, went around and helped people with trees on their property. We're hoping he can consult with Public Works, right? Is that my understanding? So anyway, the way this initial grant is concepting out is this concept of keep Norwood cool. And what Children's really wants to do is do some matchmaking with researchers and studies and things that are going on, with their researchers and communities. So now I have submitted a letter of intent for just some project ideas that, I thought were great, others thought were great. And some involve Victory Park and some involve more Williams and Montgomery. Now, Safe Routes to School is addressing safety issues, and what I'm interested in is heat islands, pollutions, where people have to stand, how hot does it get there, what can we do about that? There's a lot of science, there's a lot of money flowing into those solutions right now. So when I realized that I too am going to need a letter of support based on the feedback I get from the letter of intent. Right now, the fiscal sponsor, when I did the leadership classes, I went through Woven Oak. They had been my fiscal agent when I got a Taking Root grant. And it just made sense to go through the health department, because the health department, it's their business. If you read their website, pollution, contamination, quality of life, air quality, that's all in their wheelhouse. So we have some wonderful, talented, incredible people at the DAP Architecture School and Planning, and also at the UC College of Environmental Science. So anyway, along with the quality of life, which, you know, is develops a wish list in citizens, and it's asset-based and everything else. This is another, really, it's been developing, and it's just coming right up alongside a lot of the things that they want to do. So that's my status. I'm interested in, I mean, remediations that I could see would be, you know, measuring the heat at Victory Park and measuring the sidewalk, finding out if something like the Speedway is contaminating the park. What can we do about that? Data gives you the ability to get funding and to take steps. Maybe the bus stop on Montgomery Road at Williams is just too hot for professional people to sit and wait for the bus. Maybe if we had some kind of a shaded structure, more people would be taking the bus. Just a variety of things. So,
Great. Thanks. Just for people, because you and I have spoke about this
Okay.
quite a bit. What this is basically about is, like you said, heat islands, I think, is a great term. It's places where in urban areas where, because of lack of shade and you know, like pavement and asphalt, heat collects, and you actually get hotter places than actual normal ambient air temperature.
that's exactly right.
And so what this is about is actually creating more comfortable and healthier places within the city, just based on really reducing the environmental impact of lack of trees and shade and the materials that we use. So it's very interesting. It's very forward thinking. We do live in an urban area where we have a major thoroughfare. We have our kids walking to schools, and so it's
And we want to keep people walking
and we
to
want to
school.
keep people walking. And we want more people to walk and use our neighborhoods. So it's a really interesting thing you're doing. Let me. You said you mentioned you also need a letter of support.
I think that ultimately that's going to strengthen the proposal. The letter of intent is really so that they go through it, and then they come back and meet with you. And I asked the quality of life team for a letter of support, because I think it's important to show citizens are receptive to research. They're wise to the benefits of it, that it leads to remediations, and you know, along with the government and the health department. And I mean, I think this is just a great way for our health department to lead the way also. I think everybody heard about the humongous grant that Bloomberg gave the city of Cincinnati. I mean, a couple $1 million, right? I mean, I remember when that grant came out, and I thought, wow, that's kind of a dream, but they thought it was a very legitimate dream, Cincinnati.
Exactly.
So,
All right.
okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for coming
having
and
this
sharing.
meeting.
Absolutely. Did you have any questions? Or?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think that sounds awesome.
So, real quickly, just update on basketball stuff at Waterworks Park. Got quotes on the equipment, and we are currently looking to identify funds to purchase. I don't know if people realize that the true cost of very, very sturdy playground. Part of the issues with the old hoops were that they weren't strong enough and they were getting torn down. So we're looking for, and then, between $6,000 and $7,000 for 4 hoops to get there. I thought that included poles, but I was looking earlier, and I'm not sure if that includes new poles, so I need to check. So it might be a little bit more than that. So I've talked with the police and fire departments, their charities, and talking with the people who did the 5K run, because their whole reason for raising money was to help out with parks in Norwood. So hopefully very soon we'll have the funding that we need. We'd really like to get these purchased so that we can get them installed late winter, early spring, and so that we can have these going for good weather next year. So that's where we are with that. The last thing I wanted to talk about is our Adopt a Park program. It's been through legal. We've all looked at it and seen it and looked at it. So hopefully, I think it's time for us to get it out of committee and send to the law department to have a formal ordinance drawn up accepting it. Just know that the first time we've done this, it's been a long time coming. Donna and Greg have been working on this since longer than I've been here. I'm just happy that, yeah, I'm just happy that we're able to get it through. I'm sure that as we get it going, and we're going to want to make revisions and add and make it easier. Right now, it is focused very much on the Adopt a Park. I want to add stuff to it that is much easier for small individual projects. Probably just going to be a single page form that we do. It's still going to follow. I'll step back a little bit. A big part of this was just establishing a process to get volunteers and where and who that flows through. Now that we've got that done, tweaking that for other kinds of projects, I think is going to be easier, and we are going to do that. So I'm happy to say that
That's great.
we don't vote on things in this committee, but we're going to move the Adopt a Park out of committee and get an ordinance drawn up for it, and hopefully after about 3 readings, I think we should probably do 3 readings since that's the law. We'll have us an Adopt a Park program. So thank you for everybody who's worked hard. Donna's worked on this. Greg Oros, who is not here but is our city planner, has spent a crazy amount of time on this. He also is involved with a lot of the stuff you all are doing. He's a great asset to our city. He's here sometimes. So I just want to thank him publicly for all the hard work that he's done on that. And that is all I have. Does anybody else have anything we want to talk? Thanks for coming. And it's nice to have people here to talk to instead of just staring at the wall when we have our meetings. So great. We will have another meeting. We got Christmas coming up. I'm not sure. We probably won't have another one before the end of the year, but hopefully we'll start off strong early next year and keep things moving.
Awesome.
So,
Great.
thanks for being here.
Thank
See y'all later.
Awesome. Thank you.